This is your math gal, Julie Harland. Please visit my website at yourmathgal.com, where all of my videos are organized by topic. This is part 4 of inverse trig functions, and we do the following 3 problems on this video. Alright, we're going to find the exact value of this without using a calculator. The secant of arc sine 1 over square roots of 2. What you have to remember is anytime you see the arc sine or inverse sine, this itself is an angle. I'm going to call that angle x. Okay? So what we're looking for is really the secant of x. Okay? So I've just said it. X is the same thing as the arc sine of 1 over square roots of 2. What does that mean? I want an angle, right, or a real number, where its arc sine is only defined in between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2, but if it's positive, we're talking about quadrant 1, so we want where in quadrant 1 am I going to get an angle where the sine is 1 over square roots of 2? Hopefully you recognize that as the 45-degree angle, or pi over 4. So this is x right here. So remember, when you see arc sine, that's really some angle or real number. I'm going to call it x. So now that we're looking at x, we're looking at this angle. What is the secant? So look at the picture. How do you define the secant? The secant is r over x, or it's the reciprocal of the cosine. Okay? If you think of it as r over x, you're going to get square root of 2 over 1. Right? That'll give me the secant. In fact, I should write it that way. Secant of x, as I've drawn it, is square root of 2 over 1. Or some people figure out what the cosine is and take the reciprocal. If you look at this picture, the cosine is 1 over square roots of 2. So then the reciprocal would be square root of 2 over 1. So what's my final answer here? What's the secant of arc sine 1 over square roots of 2? It's really just square root of 2. So that is my answer. Now you didn't have to write this first. You could simply say the answer is square roots of 2. Now here's a way to sort of say it to yourself. You're trying to find the secant of an angle in quadrant 1 that has a sine of 1 over square roots of 2. That's what I'm doing. So I'm finding an angle in quadrant 1 where the sine is 1 over square roots of 2. I'm looking at it and determining what the secant is from that. Alright, we're going to find the exact value without a calculator. So this is the inverse tangent, or the arc tangent, of sine of pi over 2. So we work within the parentheses first, right? Inside here first, we need to compute the sine of pi over 2, which is just a number. Remember what that means. You could look at up at pi over 2, what's that order pair on the unit circle? That's 0, 1, and so the sine is 1. Or maybe you've memorized it. So this now becomes tan inverse or inverse tangent of 1. Okay? Now what does this mean? Arc tangent of 1. It means what real number or angle has a tangent that is positive 1? And remember, arc tangent is in between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. So now we're not looking at this anymore, right? That's just what I used to figure out the sine. We're trying to find what angle that is going to have a tangent of 1. And here you have to know that's one of your special ones. That's the 45-degree one. And if it's positive, remember we're in quadrant 1. So we're up here at quadrant 1. Remember, that's the angle that has a tangent of 1. You could think of that as 1 over 1. And that's square root of 2. But basically, what we're looking for, what is this? And we're going to write it as a real number. So if you think in terms of degrees, that's 45 degrees. If you think in terms of radians, that's pi over 2. And that's how we usually want to write our answer. We're looking for that angle or that real number. And that is written as pi over 4. Notice the overriding thing says arctangent. That means our final answer should be an angle or a number written as a real number, not in degrees. All right, we're going to find the exact value of arc cosine of cosine of negative pi over 3. Now some people look at this and think, oh, this is going to cancel each other out and I'm going to get a negative pi over 3. They're inverses, and it doesn't really work that way. You have to be really careful. For one, the main thing is arc cosine of something. So that means your final answer has to be an angle. Remember, arc cosine means you're trying to find an angle, or a real number, you could write a real number, that has a certain number in here for its cosine. Okay? So the arc cosine is defined between 0 and pi. So right off the bat, your answer must be positive, because writing a number between 0 and pi is not going to equal negative pi over 3. So that's my first comment. Be careful that you don't skip steps here. All right, so what we need to do is sort of work within the parentheses here. So first I have to figure out what the cosine of negative pi over 3 is. All right, so let's do that. The cosine and negative pi over 3. Let's draw that picture. And people figure out the cosine and negative pi over 3 many different ways. But basically it's down here. And hopefully you recognize that as a 30, 60, 90 triangle. This is negative square roots of 3 and 2. Right? So this is the angle, negative pi over 3. Right? So what is the cosine going to be for negative pi over 3? The cosine is the x over r, so it's 1/2. So the innermost part in here is arc cosine of 1/2. All right, so I've just simplified the cosine of negative pi over 3. By the way, some people know that the cosine of negative x is the same thing as the cosine of x. So if you want, you could do this, because that's an identity. The cosine of negative pi over 3 happens to be the same thing as the cosine of pi over 3. Just alternate ways people think about the same problem, and then if you draw pi over 3 up here, whoops, you're still going to get 1/2, right? There's pi over 3. And so when you compute the cosine, you're still going to get 1/2. So just notice, if you did it this way, you would still get to the same point. Arc cosine of 1/2. So what does arc cosine mean? We're looking for something between 0 and pi where the cosine is 1/2. So now I got to draw that picture. Someplace between 0 and pi where the cosine is 1/2. Well, it's got to be in quadrant 1 to be positive, right? So where's the cosine 1/2? Well, oops, I didn't draw that right at all. 1/2, there's the place. And what angle is that? 60 degrees. Or in radians, what is it? It's pi over 3. So our answer is pi over 3. Doesn't matter which thing you do first. I don't think it's any easier to do this second way, but some people like to do that. When they see a minus sign in front of an angle, they do that. They go ahead and use that identity for the cosine of negative x is the same thing as cosine of x, because that is the even function. This is your math gal, Julie Harland. Please visit my website at yourmathgal.com, where all of my videos are organized by topic.